But when I actually joined the club, there was no other club I wanted to join anyway.
Case, good turn. Oh yes!
How do you go from being a Liverpool hero to becoming a man the club no longer wants? For Jimmy Case, that question would become one of the most painful parts of his story. He had helped Liverpool conquer England. He had helped Liverpool conquer Europe. He had won trophies that most footballers could only dream of winning. Yet despite everything he had given to the club, a day arrived when his future at Liverpool was no longer secure. To supporters, it made little sense. Jimmy Case wasn't just a player, he was a fighter, a warrior, a man who never stopped battling for the badge. That was why what happened next shocked so many people. How could a player who had given Liverpool everything suddenly find himself being pushed aside? Years later, the debate still continues. Was it his mistakes? Was it football's ruthless nature? Or was one of Liverpool's toughest warriors simply abandoned too soon? For his wife Lana, the answer was far more painful than most people realised. Because while supporters saw trophies and celebrations, she witnessed the uncertainty, the pressure, and the fear of losing everything they had worked so hard to build. Subscribe, because Jimmy Case's story is one football should never forget. Jimmy Case wasn't supposed to become a Liverpool legend. There were no headlines predicting greatness, no scouts calling him the next big thing, no easy path to the top. While many young players were chasing professional contracts, Case was working as an electrician and trying to earn a living. Football was still a dream, and like most dreams, there was no guarantee it would ever come true. The odds were against him. Thousands wanted the same opportunity. Very few would ever get it. But Jimmy Case was different. He wasn't the most gifted player. He wasn't the most skillful player. What separated him from others was his mentality. He refused to be outworked. He refused to give up. And he hated losing. The tougher the challenge became, the harder he seemed to fight. People started noticing. Coaches noticed. Teammates noticed. Liverpool noticed. The problem was that getting into Liverpool's first team during the 1970s was one of the hardest jobs in football. This wasn't an ordinary squad. It was a team filled with champions, established stars, and future legends. Most players would have been intimidated. Jimmy Case wasn't. He had spent his whole life fighting for opportunities. Now, he was about to receive the biggest one of all, a chance to play for the club he loved, a chance that would change his life forever. Jimmy Case didn't wait long to make an impression. The moment he got his opportunity, he grabbed it with both hands. Liverpool supporters quickly learned what kind of player he was. Fearless, aggressive, relentless, the type of midfielder every teammate wanted beside them and every opponent hated playing against. He wasn't interested in looking stylish. He wasn't interested in headlines. His job was simple: win battles, win matches, and help Liverpool win trophies. That's exactly what he did. As Liverpool continued at their rise under legendary manager Bob Paisley, Jimmy Case became an important part of one of the greatest teams English football had ever seen. Season after season, the trophies kept arriving. League titles, European Cups, League Cups. Success became normal. But what made Case different wasn't just the medals, it was the way he earned them. Every tackle felt personal. Every challenge felt like a fight. Supporters loved that attitude. They saw one of their own wearing the Liverpool shirt, a local lad willing to give absolutely everything for the club. His powerful long-range shooting made him even more valuable. When opportunities appeared, Case wasn't afraid to take them, and more often than not, he delivered. By the end of his Liverpool career, he had won almost everything a player could dream of winning. More importantly, he had earned something trophies couldn't buy. Respect. The respect of teammates, the respect of managers, and the respect of supporters who believed Jimmy Case would remain part of Liverpool for years to come. From the outside, life couldn't have looked much better. The trophies were arriving, the fans adored him, and Liverpool were dominating football. But behind the scenes, problems were beginning to emerge. Small at first, almost impossible to notice. Yet those problems would eventually change everything. For years, Jimmy Case had been one of Liverpool's most trusted players. He had won trophies, delivered in big matches, and earned the respect of supporters across the country. From the outside, everything looked fine, but football careers rarely fall apart overnight. The first cracks usually appear long before anyone notices them. By 1980, concerns were beginning to emerge around Jimmy's life away from football. One of his closest friends at Liverpool was Ray Kennedy. The two spent a great deal of time together off the pitch. Years later, Kennedy would admit they were probably bad for each other. Then came the incident Liverpool could not ignore. In 1980, Case and Kennedy became involved in a drink-related hotel altercation in North Wales. For a club built on discipline and professionalism, it was the kind of attention Liverpool never wanted. Manager Bob Paisley took notice, and when Bob Paisley's noticed something, it mattered. Liverpool's success had been built on standards. Players were expected to represent the club properly, both on and off the pitch. At the same time, competition inside the squad was becoming fiercer. Young midfielder Sammy Lee was emerging, Liverpool were evolving, and suddenly Jimmy Case no longer looked as untouchable as he once had. The worrying part wasn't that he had stopped performing. He hadn't. The worrying part was that trust was beginning to weaken. Years later, Jimmy would openly admit that he hadn't always looked after himself properly during that period of his career. It was an honest admission, one that suggested he understood where things had started to go wrong. None of this erased what he had achieved. None of it changed the trophies he had helped Liverpool win. But football can be ruthless. Sometimes a player doesn't need to become worse. Sometimes the club simply begins looking in a different direction. And that was exactly what was happening. While supporters still saw Jimmy Case as one of Liverpool's warriors, the people making decisions behind closed doors were beginning to wonder if his future lay elsewhere. For the first time in years, Jimmy Case wasn't fighting opponents. He was fighting time, and it was a battle he was about to lose. Jimmy Case had spent years fighting for Liverpool. Now he was fighting to stay. After everything he had achieved, the club was beginning to move in a different direction. New players were emerging, new plans were being made, and Jimmy Case was no longer at the centre of them. For supporters, it was hard to understand. This wasn't an ordinary player. This was a man who had helped Liverpool win league titles, European Cups, and countless battles. Yet in 1981, the decision was made. Jimmy Case would leave Liverpool. After nearly a decade at the club, it was over. For Jimmy, this wasn't just a transfer. Liverpool was his club, his city, his identity. Now he was being forced to leave it behind. The move to Brighton came as a shock to many supporters. Most believed he still had plenty left to offer. Jimmy believed that too. For Lana and the family, it meant starting again. A new city, a new home, a completely different life. And perhaps that was the hardest part. Not leaving Liverpool, but leaving with the feeling that his story there wasn't finished. Many supporters felt the same way. They believed Liverpool had given up on one of their toughest warriors too soon. The club had moved on. The question was whether Jimmy Case could do the same. Most people thought his best days were behind him. They were about to be proven wrong. Most players never recover after leaving a club like Liverpool. Once the trophies disappear and the spotlight fades, their careers slowly fade with them. Many people expected that to happen to Jimmy Case. They were wrong. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, Case got to work. The same determination that had taken him from electrician to European Cup winner was still there, and Brighton quickly discovered exactly what kind of player they had signed. Experience, leadership, fight. Jimmy brought all of it. He wasn't there to make up the numbers. He was there to prove a point Liverpool would soon witness for themselves. In 1983, Brighton made an unforgettable run to the FA Cup final. Jimmy Case played a huge role in that journey. Then came one of the most satisfying moments of his career, a trip back to Anfield, the stadium where he had spent years building his reputation, the club that had decided to move on without him. And on that day, Jimmy Case reminded everyone exactly who he was. He scored the winning goal as Brighton defeated Liverpool. For many supporters, it felt almost unbelievable. The player Liverpool had let go was now hurting them. At their own stadium, it wasn't revenge in the traditional sense, but it was a statement, a powerful one. Jimmy Case wasn't finished, not even close. The club that had doubted his future was now being forced to watch him succeed somewhere else. And the best part? His story still wasn't over. By now, Jimmy Case had already proven one thing. Leaving Liverpool had not ended his career. If anything, it had given him a new challenge. After his time at Brighton, Case joined Southampton. And once again, he showed exactly why so many people had respected him throughout his career. The fire was still there. The determination was still there. And most importantly, the fight was still there. At Southampton, he became far more than just an experienced player. He became a leader, a captain, someone younger players could look up to. The same qualities that had made him successful at Liverpool were now helping shape an entirely different dressing room. Many footballers struggle after leaving a club they love. Some never recover emotionally, others spend the rest of their careers looking back. Jimmy Case chose a different path. He kept moving forward, he kept competing, and he kept proving people wrong. The player many believed was finished was still performing at the highest level, still earning respect, still making an impact. Years after Liverpool had decided to move on, Jimmy Case was showing that his value had never disappeared. Maybe Liverpool saw a player in decline. Maybe they believed the future belonged to someone else. But one thing became impossible to deny. Jimmy Case had far more left to give than many people expected, and that is exactly why the debate never truly went away. Did Liverpool make the right decision, or did they let one of their toughest warriors go too soon? More than 4 decades have passed since Jimmy Case left Liverpool, yet the debate still hasn't disappeared. Did Liverpool make the right decision, or did they push out one of their toughest warriors too soon? The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Jimmy Case made mistakes. Even he has admitted that. There were moments during his Liverpool years that he would later look back on differently, but there is another side to the story that is often forgotten. The player Liverpool moved on from wasn't finished, not even close. After leaving Anfield, Case continued proving himself. At Brighton, at Southampton, and everywhere he went, he earned respect. Not because of his reputation, not because of his medals, but because of the way he carried himself, the way he competed, the way he refused to quit. Across a professional career spanning more than 20 years, Jimmy Case made over 700 appearances and scored more than 80 goals. He won league titles, European Cups, League Cups, and became one of the most decorated players of his generation. Yet for many supporters, the trophies are not what make his story memorable, it's what happened after them. The setbacks, the criticism, the uncertainty, the feeling that one mistake could erase years of loyalty and sacrifice. For Lana, that side of the story was impossible to ignore. While supporters debated transfers and football decisions, she witnessed the human side, the disappointment, the frustration, the challenge of rebuilding a life after Liverpool. And perhaps that's why the question still lingers today. Not because Jimmy Case was perfect, but because so many people believe he deserved more time, more trust, a different ending. Today, the headlines are gone, the controversy has faded, the stadiums are quieter, and Jimmy Case lives a far more private life than the one he experienced during football's golden years. But his legacy remains. Because football supporters remember fighters, they remember players who gave everything, and few gave more than Jimmy Case. Liverpool moved on, Jimmy Case moved on, but the story never truly ended. Because even now, decades later, many supporters still look back and wonder whether one of Liverpool's greatest warriors was pushed aside before his time. Maybe we'll never know the answer, but one thing is certain. Jimmy Case's legacy was never defined by the way he left Liverpool. Subscribe, because football may forget some of its heroes, but their stories deserve to live on.